what are some other learning experiences maybe that you've had in this term, and how can you improve in the following term, assuming you are elected again?
You look at the resumes of the people we brought in, their personal experiences. We hired great people, and we had a great team. We walk in the door. But what we didn't do, and what I didn't do, and I didn't take into consideration, again because I hadn't been in this role before, was I didn't take into consideration a number of variables that have to go with who you want to be part of your team. For example, they might be wonderful as far as their experience, their background, their education, and all that. But if they don't have the same vision that the mayor has, now you have the possibility of them wanting to go left when you're wanting to go right. If they don't have the strengths, the same personality and characters that I have in reference to the way that I want to operate the city and the way that I want to manage the city, you've got issues. We have people that were hardcore, old school, beat 'em up managers, and you have soft sell, new wave managers that work through committee. You know, you have different styles. And so what you ended up with was a team of great people, but the styles and the character and the personalities didn't necessarily fit. They weren't picked because they worked with us or they were loyal to our platform or our ideas. They were picked because they were good people. So that's like taking you know, a number of candidates out there and saying, hey, you're all going to work together. Well, they all have different platforms and ideas, and so what happened was some of the people gelled with us and worked, and some of them didn't. And so we had to go through a learning curve of bringing the right people in, changing those who may be great people but not necessarily the right fit. And so over a course of a couple of years, I've made a number of changes that's allowed me to mold my administration, mold my cabinet to better represent the character and the passion of our platform in reference to how we want to handle things and how we want to steer the ship. And so I think that we're much, much better today. We still have great resumes, we still have great pedigrees, we still have great teams, but what we have now is we have folks that I believe better represent my vision of what I thought would be in charge of running the city. And the only way that I could have gone through that was to experience it and to make those changes. teams, but what we have now is we have folks that I believe better represent my vision of what I thought would be in charge of running the city. And the only way that I could have gone through that was to experience it and to make those changes. What I was willing to do, though, I was willing to make those changes on very good people, but not the people that I wanted. And I took a lot of criticism for that. But I believe today we have got a great team in place. And I kind of joke about this in reference to, you know, by the end of my term, we'll have learned enough, we'll put our team together. I believe by the end of my first term, we're going to be ready to run the city. And I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of truth to that. The learning curve and the time it takes to mold your team, it takes time. And another example of that is when I first came in, one of the things I saw in reference to cutting costs, changing things, and making the city more efficient and effective was I looked at the Parks Department and the Recreation Department and I said, you know, virtually every city in America has a Parks and Recreation Department, yet we have separate ones. Because it happened in 1910, 1920, you know, through statutory change, whatever. We need to change that. So I came out and said, hey, let's merge Parks and Recreation so that we can be more efficient and address this. Well, the Park Board came out and said, no, we're opposed to it. The Park Director says that's ridiculous, we're not going to save any money. The Recreation Board came out and said, no, no way, we don't want to do that. The Recreation Director says that's crazy, we're not going to save any money. You know, the newspaper comes out and says, well, that wasn't real thought out, Mayor, you know, you need to think these things through better. Well, the thought process is exactly right. From a business standpoint, from a efficiency standpoint, from a mergers and acquisition standpoint, it absolutely makes sense. What didn't make sense, though, is the fact that there's a number of individuals and processes that are in place that you have to go through before you can get to the point of saying, I want to do this. And again, this is part of my learning curve. What I've realized is I need members on these boards that reflect the same vision that I have in reference to moving the city forward. And I think one of the things is talking about how we can reduce spending and improve efficiencies in Parks and Recreation. Well, if the board members do not want to do that, I can talk to them blue in the face, the board's never going to do it. So what I've had to do over the past 3.5 years was I've had to address those board members. I appoint them, but I get to appoint one a year or once every 2 years, and we start changing that. So what you'll see is those people that are on the park board, we've had a chance now that I've been here 3 years to have people that match my vision on the park board. You have people on the rec board that are now more favorable to the ideas that we want to present. Those people on the health board, those people on the building department, all the different boards and commissions, they have a huge impact and influence in reference to how the city maneuvers through the issues. Well, it's taken me nearly 4 years. In fact, some of these boards it'll take 5 or 6 years to cycle through. So I've been working with people that were appointed by the prior administration that had a totally different vision. So now those people that reflect my vision are now in a position to have control of these boards, and I'm up for re-election. So if I get reelected for a second term, I've now got all the players and pieces in place now that we can do things that we wanted to do 4 years ago when I went out and announced we were going to do it, and we had no way of getting it done. Now, through all these channels, we're figuring out how to make that happen. If you change administrations now, a new administrator is going to come in, they're going to have different ideas, and they're going to be dealing with people that have all my vision in place. And so they're going to spend the next 3 or 4 years trying to undo what I just put into place. So changing administrations in a 4-year cycle is very disruptive from trying to get things completed based off of what I was elected for. The same thing was true for my predecessor. You know, by the time she was up for re-election, you know, she had just gotten all her people in there. And so as I was out there challenging her saying, well, she's not gotten this done, not that done, well, she didn't have the ability to. And just like we haven't had the ability to, but I can tell you that those things are starting to fall in place now, so we can get those things done. So yeah, in reference to what have we learned? We've learned that there's a lot of systems and processes in place that just take time. And there's no way to fast track some of this stuff as much as you like to. And you know, those things we can do, we've been figuring out how to get them done. Those things we couldn't, we're going through the motions of making those changes. So it seems like a long answer, but it kind of explains things that we wouldn't know otherwise.